All right, good evening and welcome to Monetary Economics, ECS 3701. So today we're going to be dealing with chapter 2, the money chapter. Right, so if you, this is chapter 3, sorry. So if you look at a concept like money, right, a concept like money, and you ask people around what money is, you definitely get a lot of definitions. And I'm sure from a conversation's perspective, people will tell you that people will obviously confuse money with wealth, obviously from the number of things that you're gonna hear if you ask people around on the street. And I'm actually thinking one day, if I'm gonna be doing a comprehensive video about this, I'm just gonna do an experiment. You just walk to the mall and you ask people, what is money? What do you think money is? And you get to hear, I mean, a wide range of answers that you get from people. But in any case, the definitions are not exactly wrong. We wouldn't exactly say the definitions are wrong, because at the end of the day, when we talk of definitions, we basically want to talk about the way people understand a word or the way people understand a concept. So if they are able to communicate to the next person and the next person understands what the person means, then I guess under those circumstances, we wouldn't say the definition is wrong. Right? But here in economics, we obviously have our own definition of money, the economics definition of money, which is given here as anything that can generally be accepted as payment or accepted in payment for goods or services or the repayment of debt. So part of the characteristics of money, if you can remember well, possibly from the 1601, you will remember that when it comes to money, it's a legal tender, right? I think we mentioned this again in the other class. Money is a legal tender, meaning what we mean by that is you can use that money to pay your debts, and the person to whom you are paying those debts is under the obligation to accept that as payment. See, so hence it is the legal tender. That's what we mean there. So money is anything that can generally be accepted as, in exchange for goods and payment. Sorry, in exchange for goods and services. And then, having said that, the money that we are used to these days is obviously the currency that we are seeing every day, the cash and the coins that we're using every day. But based on this definition here, you already do understand that, or you can already pick up that if we are saying that money is anything that can be given in exchange for goods and services, then there are some instances where you don't exactly pay with money, right? There are certain circumstances where you don't use paper currency, for example, to make such a payment. Let me not say pay with money, since we are defining money. But I meant to say pay with the money that we know, this paper currency that we know. So which means there are obviously different types of monies. And by that, I mean, if you're gonna look at the evolution of money, if you're gonna start the history of money, which we don't do here, you realize that money has a long history, right? Money has a long history. Starting, of course, with, barter exchange. People were exchanging, goods for goods or goods for services, right? So that was also acceptable. So it was in some way, some kind of money, but very inefficient, of course, very inefficient. Then it went, over the years to, silver and gold. Back in the days, you had to exchange that with silver and gold. And then it had its advantages and disadvantages. Then in the end, it evolved until it became paper money. For the most part of our lives, it was paper money. Then now it has increasingly become electronic, right? So if you look at money back in the days, what we don't exactly do here, I'll see if we can do a comprehensive discussion on that. But if you look at money back in the days, because it was silver and gold, when it transitions now to the paper money and the coins that we see today, it was initially backed up by the gold that the Reserve Bank had. So ideally, in our situation here in South Africa, you could argue and say, okay, all the money that is in circulation is generally equal to the reserves or the gold reserves that we have kept with the Reserve Bank. So that's what it was, and that was referred to as the gold standard then. But of course, it had some problems again, and then we transitioned towards what we call fiat currency, which is what we have now. So fiat currency is basically paper, right? It's basically paper that is backed by nothing but, you know, the word from the government, right? Your trust for the government. And that's what fiat currency is. So back in the days, it made a lot of sense that, okay, if ever your money stock goes up, means your gold reserves have gone up, right? So that seemed to make a bit of sense under those circumstances. But as a result of the problems that came with that situation, most of the countries transitioned to fiat currency, which is a lot better, which has its advantages and its disadvantages, of course. But at the end of the day, fiat currency is simply backed by the government. So it's based on our trust of the government. So in other words, if I give you a 100 rand bill now, so what is that 100 rand really worth at the end of the day? You see, what is that 100 rand really worth? Because if it's the gold standard, you could basically go at any time and exchange that 100 rand for the gold that is stored. But in this instance, it's not really worth anything, except that the government says it's worth 100 rand. You see, that's what happens with fiat currency. So if it's basically based on the fact that the government says it's worth 100 rand, then it means that any time it can lose value, right? It can lose value. All right, but going back to the notes now, we want to talk about functions of money, because that's basically a typical exam question anyway. What are the functions of money? So function number one, it generally has three functions, this money. Number one, which is the most important function, it's a medium of exchange. This one is very linked to its definition, right? It's very linked to its definition. Anything that can be used for, you know, in payment. So it's in other words, it's an exchange. So money is a medium of exchange. It is used to pay for goods and services. So why is money important in that regard? Because it promotes economic efficiency, right? So we are comparing it with you know, previous situation where there was barter exchange, right? So the one big problem that barter exchange had, of which we are saying barter exchange is where you are trading, you are exchanging goods for goods or services for goods. Likewise, the one problem was when you know you would have to search. Suppose you wanted a cold drink, right? And you are a tutor like myself, so I'll have to trade my services for a cold drink. So I'll need to find someone that has a cold drink and that needs tutoring services. Then we can engage in an exchange. So what would happen now if I don't find that kind of person? And besides the time that is spent looking for such a person, you see, it's very inefficient. It was very inefficient. So hence, money came in as a very good medium of exchange then. So you won't have to struggle in that regard. And then money is unit of account. So it is used to measure value in the economy. Right? So how do you know how much something is worth, except that you put it in monetary terms? You see, that's how important it is. So we measure the economy in monetary terms. We measure the GDP in monetary terms. You measure your own wealth in monetary terms. So hence I was saying, if you ask people what money is, they'll give you various definitions, as a result of different perspectives that we have about money. Money is usually equated to a person's wealth, right? Why is that so? Because it is a unit of account at the end of the day. So if we're saying, Jeff Bezos is worth a certain amount of money, it's basically its function as a unit of account there. We see money's function in that regard. Then, of course, money is a store of value, right? Money is a store of value. So how so? How is money a store of value? We measure the value of goods and services in monetary terms. For starters, it is a repository of purchasing power over time, right? So in any case, money does store value, right? Because you can even keep it as money and use it for, and keep it for later use, which is not advisable, of course, if you look at the economic conditions these days. It's not exactly a very good store of value, right? Though it is a store of value, but you might want to consider other assets in place of money. Like I said earlier, we are dealing with fiat currency. So fiat currency is not backed by anything. If our level of trust in the government goes down, it can easily affect, the value of that money, right? Just to give you a clue, if you look at the prices of gold, for example, they are pretty stable. The prices of gold are pretty stable, though they do go up and down in response to, they do go up and down in response to the forces of demand and supply, but they are generally stable. But if you look at a currency, for example, how its value can easily go up and down as a result of, political interference here and there. You see somehow the impact of, if you're going to be comparing the fiat currency versus currency that's under the gold standard, you see how easily that one can be shaken. Fiat currency can be shaken. But it's really kind of interesting. Of course, it's really kind of interesting if you are to consider it. Next time you have a 200 rand bill or 100 rand bill in your pocket, just ask yourself such questions. How do you know that this is really worth 200 rand? Why is it really worth 200 rand? Why is this worth 100 rand? What do we mean by that if we're saying this is 100 rand? Because this is just paper which represents value, but it represents value. Where is that value? In other words, you see. But in any case, that's a discussion for another day. All right. And then when we talk of money, we basically can group it now into 4 categories. We can basically group it into 4 categories in economics when we want to look at the definition of money. So category number 1 is M1A, right? M1A, monetary aggregate. So the M1A consists of cash plus check and transmission deposits held by the domestic, private, and non-bank sector at commercial banks. So this is the most basic definition of money. Right, the most basic definition of money. So this one we are pretty much aware of because we use that one a lot, right? So which is cash plus check and transmission deposits. Transmission deposits, when you put, say, a security deposit, it pretty much looks, if you go and deposit money, say, someone is just about to offer you a service and they say deposit some money. So that's called a transmission deposit there. And then M1, which is slightly broader than M1A, constitutes everything that is in M1A, and then plus demand deposits held by the domestic by the domestic private sector with the bank, right? But what are demand deposits? So these are deposits that are convertible into cash on demand, right? Hence we refer to them as demand deposits. So you see, most of that money that you have in your bank account, it's a demand deposit, right? Because you can basically withdraw it anytime. And mind you, that money you can even use, it can basically be used the same way that you use your cash and your coins, right? Your cash, coins, and your checks. Because you can now talk to the bank and you can actually pay via these demand deposits, right? You can make such payments. So for you to make a payment, you don't really now have to go and make a withdrawal. You can just do an EFT, right? Look at how things have become easy now. And then slightly broader than that, you would have M2, right? You will have the M2. So M2 is going to consist of M1, so which M1 also has in it M1A, right? And then other than that now, you begin to have things that are called near monies, right? Things that are near monies, almost monies. What are those, right? What are those? Now you're looking at short-term and medium-term deposits. So with short-term deposits, you're looking at anything within the range of a day to, that FNB 30-day accounting. That's going to be part of your M2. And then over and above that, then you will have your medium-term deposits, which are above 32 days, right? Those ones are going to be your medium term. And then the most comprehensive definition now of money, your M3, is going to obviously include everything that is in M2 now. Some of these questions, if you check, I'm not sure now if you still get questions like that at that level where they give you all sorts of numbers, your M1 and your M2, and then they say maybe compute M3, or what is your M2 if your M1 is such an amount, M1A is a certain amount, then they ask you to do that. I don't think they still ask those questions at this level. But in any case, what's important here is to know what constitutes these amounts, right? So M3 is an extension, of course, of M2 and includes the short-term, medium-term deposits and long-term deposits held by the private sector. So the private domestic sector with monetary institutions. So M3 also includes all deposit liabilities of the monetary banking sector as well as non-monetary deposits. So that's your M3 there. So it's the most comprehensive measure of your money, right? Maybe just do an experiment one of these days, go around and interview people and find out from them what they think money is. Ask tough questions about money. And the one time I realized that, taking you back again to the fiat currency issue, because I really found it a little bit interesting now that we are discussing money. If you are to consider that the same paper that makes a 20 rand bill is the same paper that makes a 100 rand bill. So what makes the values different, right? If you are basically putting in the same inputs to make the paper, probably the same ink is printing that, but at the end of the day, the value comes out different. So the other one is worth something else and the other one is worth something else. See, food for thought. The other time, we're wondering just how many 10 rand bills are in circulation and how many 100 rand bills are in circulation, and who knows, right? Or does the South African Reserve Bank know the stock of money at any given point? Do they know how much they have in circulation, right? And then for your research now, just find out who's responsible for the printing of money in South Africa, right? I know it's the South African Reserve Bank, but it has got subsidiary companies that are responsible for that, right? So just find out the structure of the South African Reserve Bank and the companies that are under it, what their responsibilities are, those three companies, right? And then on our next session, one is called Mint. What's the other one? And what does the Mint company do?
They print money. They print money.
All right. The paper money, or because we also have coins. Who does the coins?
Well, I believe Mint, they print the paper money. Regarding coins, I will find out.
Okay. All right. Fine. So there are three companies under South African Reserve Bank. So please find out what each and every one of those companies do. Right. So one of them, okay, no, let me not preempt that. So I'm gonna leave you guys to check that. So you can check maybe and post in the group so that we don't have to wait for the next session. Right. Just research that. Just do a Google search on that, and then post it in the group, and then we'll run the discussion there in the group. All right. So what's important now about money in the light of what we're doing in this module is just the definitions, of course, the definitions of money. And then most of which, some of the questions here will come out, under that section where it's near multiple choice or true or false questions. So it's not that much hectic, right? But just know the definitions of money, the functions of money, and then, of course, the gold standard. Just know I didn't put it in on the notes there, but just the difference between the gold standard and the fiat currency, right? Just those there. So for now, that's what's important there.